Hello and welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. My name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. This is our website's podcast where we publish full interviews from our site's articles and sometimes release exclusive episodes. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, musicians and producers Cheylene Murphy and Ryan McGroarty of the Derry indie alt-pop project Beauty Sleep discussed releasing The Whole Damn Cake, which is their first album in 6 years, what they've been up to between releases, discovering themselves while making this record, where the independent music scene has come from when they started, the importance of queer art today, signing to Alcopop Records, and much more. Starting tomorrow on November 13th at Sandino's in Derry, Beauty Sleep will be embarking on a tour of Ireland and the UK. On the 20th of November they'll be at the Empire Music Hall in Belfast. On the 21st they'll be at the Art Antics Artist Studios in Dundee, Scotland. On the 22nd they'll be at Food Story in Aberdeen. Then on the 23rd they'll be at the Clooney 2 in Newcastle. On the 24th they'll be at the Exchange in Bristol. On the 27th they'll be at the Cavendish Arms in London. And on the 29th they'll be at Mono in Glasgow. They'll also be performing a free midnight event at the RÓISÍN DUBH in Galway on December 18th. Tickets for all those shows are available in the description of this episode. Thank you very much and enjoy. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, can you hear us all right?
Sorry I'm a little late.
Zoom
decided it was the perfect time to do an update.
It's always the way.
No worries.
Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound gorgeous.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I was meant to speak, reached out a couple of weeks ago about setting up the interview. It just wasn't a good time at that time, so I'm glad that you're still taking interviews. I really wanted to speak about this
Imagine
record.
we were like,
Oh, yeah.
no, that's enough.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
We're fucking
No, yeah.
as much promo as we can get forever, please.
That's it, put a penny
Well,
on
here's
it
a good
and
thing.
talk
So
about it.
now we have a bit of perspective, I guess, since your latest album came out, The Whole Damn Cake. So how do you feel about reception wise since it's come out? Because I know it's something you've been working on for like such a long time to finally have it out, and you can really see the effort when you listen to the record. I mean, each track is so like. To me, feels so meticulously crafted, and obviously, it's a full length release, so you can actually feel the hard work as you listen to it. At least I did.
Thank you so much. That's really kind of you to say. Yeah, I think for us, although you say it's been a bit of time, it's still this incredible thing where we can't believe like wonderful people like yourself have heard it. It still feels like it's a product of our minds and, formed in our little studio here. And, so it's a bit surreal anytime someone talks about it in that regard. I think it'll take us a while to process it being out and kind of unleashed and released from our within. And definitely playing live a lot in the coming weeks, I think will give us that opportunity to get up in people's faces. And kind
Yeah,
of
it
have a bit of fun.
feels more real live. I think it's hard. People say you've heard it, and you're like, have you heard it? And also, I don't want to watch anyone listen to it, so it's just a bit like, that's crazy. But I think we can start to hear them now. I couldn't hear them as songs for ages, and now we're like, oh, they sound like songs, so that's good.
Yeah.
How do you find actually replicating the musical life? Because I know you're both producers, you both work in terms of like music engineering as well. So when you're crafting a record or when you're crafting a single, is there consideration for how it's going to be translated live, or do you kind of let the recorded song be one thing and then the live performance be another?
I think
Great
the
question.
latter. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're asking us on a good day because you've spent all morning doing tour planning,
Yeah.
and wishing that we had maybe thought about the live stuff ahead of time. But no, we generally keep it quite separate. I mean, the studio is such a special place for us, and it's so great that we can collaborate so intensely in that way. And we do kind of write as we produce songs, and it's a very creative space, so we just kind of like let it be free like that, and then when it comes to live we just kind of figure it out in a whole new way, whichever feels most exciting. So no, we don't think about it.
We did talk about, we kind of were having this conversation earlier actually, because we thought, maybe if we make another record, it would be nice to design it with those parameters in place.
Yeah.
Like, we're only going to use these 4 sounds as a starting point, and this record had a kind of unintentionally but quite expansive sonic world, I suppose. Just along the way, you picked up a new instrument or a new oddity that can often be difficult to exactly replicate. So I think what you have to do in that scenario, what we find, is just to think about the people that will be in the room and what you can physically bring to it, whether it's a show, if it's the two of us, which we've been doing, full kind of electronic and loud, or even two of us acoustic we've done. But and then the sort of the Vegas show we call it with our drummer Ross, which is a more live drum element. So yeah, try and slightly tailor it to the audience and reinterpret it, I think, is what we're hoping will work. We'll let you know.
Well, when it comes obviously to the arrangements of the songs, and not only just the songs themselves, but like when you're making a record, like just obviously consideration for the track listing and stuff like that. So, when it comes to, I guess, like with this tour that you have coming up, are you going to be trying to replicate the album, or yeah, how's the structure kind of work, I guess, live compared to on the
Yeah,
record?
I love track listing. So it's
Yeah,
Yeah,
very,
I
I
bet.
think it should be different. Like it should be different. I feel like the album, I really love the track listing. It's not like chronological in any way, but it feels like it jumps into the anxiety and the wooziness in our first track, and then it goes straight to like all the party, outward, happy end of the journey elements, and then it kind of works its way back round to that journey. And I hope it feels quite cyclical in that way. But live, again, we're always thinking of the audience. So it's like
yeah,
to start in the middle wouldn't make any sense. So I think yeah, we're hoping we're literally in the middle of it, but we're trying to figure out ways that we could have a really big opener and a really fun closer and like some weird things in the middle, and again, what's exciting to see live. And we're arguing about which songs to cut, and we're going to try and play the whole album for like two of the shows, because there's like a few headline shows that we have a bit more wiggle room on. So we're going to try and play the whole album on a couple of shows, but songs have to be cut live too, which is sad. But maybe they're not
yeah.
meant to be live. Maybe they're just recorded songs. Blah, blah, blah.
Well, I actually have to ask, you guys have spoken very extensively about your influences in terms of the music that you craft. Like St. Vincent, obviously, is a big one that keeps popping up. But beyond just like, just in terms of like the music that you guys want to create and the kind of atmosphere and the kind of soundscape that you guys want to create, is there any artists you look at specifically for live performances that you think is like really good at that kind of roller coaster for, kind of I remember learning this in like music industry things, so maybe this is a bit formal, I don't know, a bit rigorous, but this idea of like the roller coaster, you start off on the big high and then you kind of let them dip a little bit and then you kind of bring them up, and it's
Yeah.
it's all this very thing. Do you think there's artists that you look at in terms of that influence, in terms of like who can really put on a really good live show that you guys go like, oh yeah,
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 like, but I mean, everyone though, that's the
well, I think
thing.
it's at certain levels. I think maybe the unifying factor of my whole life is like maybe immersive experiences,
yeah,
which can be anything from like 40 people in like a small basementy punk show, or whatever. I mean, the one that springs to mind in terms of a higher production version, we saw Caribou last year at Boiler Room in
That was
Belfast.
amazing.
You can look out for us, heavily giving it socks in the front row. But it was so great because they sort of played like in the round, almost like a boxing ring, and we were just standing right beside their drummer, right behind him, at the floor wedge, and it was just blasting in your face, and there was all these people sort of dancing around, very safe, inclusive space. So like that was just kind of redesigned for me how that immersion can feel on a larger scale, because sometimes you can be sitting down at the sound desk, you can't really see, and there's a tall person in your way, and then someone bumps into you and there's a big queue for the bathroom, and those things take you out of that world. Where if you
sure.
can create things that bring people in or invite people in to participate in some way, I think the reciprocal kind of energy then is, yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, most bands or artists I see live, I'm always like, that's so exciting, that's so inspiring, and you can take so much from it. Even in much more like, I don't know, I was going to say earthy ways,
Hmm.
like if it's like going out into the crowd or like giving someone the microphone, or I haven't seen Florence and the Machine live in a long time, but I've seen her live like look deeply in the eyes of someone for ages, and
Yeah.
you're like, that's just really intense and beautiful. And I love being an audience member in the shows, and I think the point of playing it shouldn't be that playing it live shouldn't be that here is a perfect representation of the record, look how great we are at our instruments or whatever. I don't know, I don't think people really think like that, but it's much more about trying to find ways to connect, and some people might call them gimmicks, but I think that they're really exciting. So we have a lot of favorite artists. Problem Patterns are really great punk band that we're really close friends
Album
with.
bands are great, yeah.
amazing, and they have such theatrical angry energy. Like I
Yeah.
always look at their faces and
So
be like, oh,
fierce.
I just want to like have like really mean it that much in my face. And we supported Jessica Winter, and she's like being a pop star on like a small budget, and she had like a couple of fans that she brought herself that really just made her look like ethereal, and a lighting rig just put on like white card. And I was like, that's so cool, because like from a distance
Yeah.
it just looks like a big production, but you're like, oh, this is just card and a fan from Argos. Like that's so exciting.
But there's this
So
kind of like I think we called it like commitment to the bit in a sense, where like and like
Yeah.
Jessica's other band member Ella like just hold such power with their presence, and like they come on and kind of command your attention in this space, and like kind of respect where I think we're trying sometimes we feel like we sort of bumble on and can be like, all right, how you doing? Well, we're beautiful. And it's like
we're trying to we're always
more
inspired to
theatrical.
be better and
Yeah.
more theatrical. We're also part of an artist collective, so like we have a lot of theater cabaret friends and dancer friends, and they're like when we see them perform as well, just live performance is so exciting. And yeah, we're always trying to get better at it, and we're always thinking about it and always trying to go see more shows.
Well, this is something I've actually asked other artists who kind of add theatrics to their performings is that when you're kind of like a theater level band or upwards, so especially if you get to like the arena or the stadium settings, there's kind of a consistency between the venues you're playing, like the parameters, the stage setup, like you can kind of accommodate. I think like arenas in particular, especially recently built arenas, are kind of very uniform. But with clubs, what I find very interesting is that they're all very idiosyncratic in terms of like even is the stage elevated or not, and things like that. Like their clubs tend to be very, I think, like much more individualistic expressions compared to like a theater or an arena. But for that kind of setting, in terms of like being like kind of adaptable and being able to morph between the parameters of the venue you happen to be playing, is that something that you guys have like considered in terms of like do you like preemptively kind of like look up the venues you're playing and sort of go like, okay, here's what we're working with here, or how's that kind of work, I guess?
That's smart. Maybe
Yeah,
we should do that.
yeah, that's a really like astute sort of observation of that. Like I suppose things become more homogenous the bigger you get. You're kind of
Yeah.
making the same show in a box, and you could nearly do it on autopilot probably if you're you're doing it that repetition of that often. But yeah, this upcoming tour will be like a mixture of like headlines and slightly bigger rooms, all relatively small shows, and as you say, that creates this sort of environment that some are floor shows, some are slightly elevated. So I think it's a very good kind of like a boot camp for like how to perform, because you have to sort of be adaptable in a sense. But I really like the idea of looking up the venues
Yeah,
that
no,
you
I
get
actually might do
visited
that.
and sort of
But I
preparing.
agree with you again as a
I,
fan
I I
of.
will admit I sold that off someone else.
Oh, really? Well, it's good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
good advice. We should spread that. I mean, right, all the images are on Google now, but
yeah,
no, I mean, I love club shows for that reason, because especially again, as I go as a fan, you've no idea what you're going to get, and there's something more real about being in a room with someone who's just figuring it out on the spot.
yeah.
And then yeah, same thing, like going in and to sound check and being like, okay, what's possible, what's not possible, and being able to like do that a bit off the cuff keeps it really interesting, because actually touring is obviously very repetitive. So like, I do like the randomness of that. And yeah, this tour coming up, I think, is our most random collection of different setups possible. Like we're playing in like a vegan cafe, and then we're playing in some like arts collective bunker, and we're playing in like the Empire in Belfast, like a big
Yeah.
venue, and then we're playing in like some more traditional like smaller indie clubs. There's loads of crazy, do you know what I mean? Like there's just so many
Yeah.
of them, but we're gonna
Yeah, I
figure
love
it
that
out.
variation. Like,
Yeah, we'll figure out what makes sense.
well, I have to ask. So, you guys have been around for probably about a decade now. You've been releasing music since 2016. Probably the project started a little before that. So, I was wondering, like, with kind of in that last decade, say, how do you think like pop has evolved? Because one thing I actually think is that pop music now is like a lot more interesting, a lot more idiosyncratic, like I find that the big pop artists now, you can kind of really distinguish character between them in terms of subject matter, in terms of art style, and they're not conflicting, like they all have the opportunity to be popular. It seems to me, and I could be wrong in this, um um pop artists are now more permitted to be kind of be themselves, whereas I think before there was like a lot of like manufacturing calculation stereotypically, right? and a lot of parameters, like especially around politics, for example. Like I think of like this is a weird thing, but I think of like Britney Spears during the second Gulf War, where like they would
Oh my
ask her
God.
about it, and she was like, "I can't speak about that." It was just a weird thing to be like, "What do you think of President Bush?" But do you think pop artists, pop music more broadly, but especially like the idea of what a pop artist is now? Do you think there is permission now to be more yourself, or how do you feel about that?
I agree. I think pop music's gone so interesting and
Yeah,
so cool, especially in the past 5 years, like post-pandemic.
yeah,
And it's definitely like the artists that I see and that I'm most inspired by, I can just see how they're integrating so much more into the artistry than just the music. And I'm not say just the music, obviously the music is like my favorite thing, but
yeah,
that they seems very creative and very open and very broad. And there's lots of ways in, like whether it's with a live show or with social media or with visuals or um events. Like it's really exciting and cool and I love it. It's really funny you saying that to us though, because I don't think we really view ourselves as pop artists. We have
yeah.
this thing, everyone always calls us pop artists, and I love that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I think that we don't really make music with that in mind. We just really love a catchy melody. And I think, and also we're very shiny people, so I think that comes across as pop, but we're not as smart as them, as pop artists. Pop artists are very good at like the big picture, and we're always kind of winging it and figuring it out as we go. So we definitely are very indie in that way. But yeah, I do like pop artists have actually been the artists I've been most inspired by, I think, in the past few years. So maybe that's rubbed off as well. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I mean, it does feel like I've noticed it even in like, so we work in studios with other artists, and I've noticed in the last decade like people's tastes even are way more like democratized. Like it's way
Yeah,
less like when I was growing up, it was a lot more like scene based, and that what would happen then is that there'd be a lot of bands that would tend to be sort of similar, and that obviously still exists to a certain extent, but I just think people can come in with drawing inspiration from the wildest places, really diverse musical references, be that like a sort of positive from streaming and like being able to find your own world on the internet. So yeah, it's quite interesting, and I suppose our opinions are formed from like we started playing in like traditional punky garage bandy type things, and then I suppose always aspired to be pop, but I think it's
Yeah.
probably led to like this there's a weirdness to it, but I think more than ever hopefully you can celebrate the weird, and that's what our whole album's about. It's like the true acceptance of yourself and sort of ownership of that. So I hope there's space for that. I think so.
yeah, that's a great point you made about like I remember like how click based it was, kind of like when I was like even a teenager. Like if you wore like a black hoodie with a band's logo on it or something like that, people would give you shit. And it's like it seems like it's just, I think it's better now, for like younger people like who can kind of experiment with different musics. Where I do think like before there was this kind of expectation that more regimented, more parameter based of like, if you're into rock and metal, you're over here. If you're into pop, you're here. If you're into rave, you're here. And I think now you're seeing like that expansion, and you're just seeing that kind of dissolve a lot, I find. And I think it's definitely a lot better. It's a lot more interesting. And the other good thing, I don't know if you guys agree with me on this too, but I remember like growing up, like if a band came to Ireland at all, it would just be like Dublin, Belfast, that'd be it. And now find that um like if you within like say 20-kilometer radius there's something like really interesting going on. There's like all these like local scenes and pockets kind of popping up. Has that been something you've noticed, like just a change just how long you guys have been doing this? Because obviously you were in Wonder Villains before this
Mhm.
too, so it's not just this project. So I was wondering, just like in your time as musicians, in its totality, I guess, you find that you see these things happening, or is it more kind of like you just look back and you're like, oh well, I guess that was like a paradigm shift.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, you both. It has
Yeah,
changed so much. Like it's crazy. And I think you were saying about like the smaller local scenes in
yeah,
like smaller places. I do think that that's true. Even in this tour, like it was very hard for us to not hard for well, to be very honest, it's always very hard to book shows, but
sure,
it's harder to book shows in some of the bigger cities because they're so booked up with massive acts, and
yeah,
so and also big cities much more expensive to live now, and I think that there's always art is always a little ahead of the curve of like they're being pushed into spaces that are more affordable and they'll make shit happen for themselves, and
yeah,
so we have shows in Aberdeen and Dundee, and like we were playing in Newry over the summer, and like it was really we were playing in Newry and Hastings over the summer, and it was great to play all these places, and they had such a close knit scene of people like really making things happen. And that's always really exciting as an artist, and as, you know, as indie artists and freelancers, and we like, you know, we're trying to be as involved as we can be in anything related to music. So the scenes definitely have dispersed a bit, and I suppose because it's more possible with the internet to do that a little bit more now, whereas when we were growing up it definitely felt like you had to be in the big city to make it, to meet people. And I suppose, though, to be fair, I do think that's still a little bit true, but there's probably a bit of an in-between. But yeah, it's changed so much. It's really crazy. It's really crazy. We feel brand new in a way because the music industry is completely different from like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. Like, it's so different.
I feel really fortunate though, like to be able to connect to, you know, a lot of sort of smaller like collectives and you know, sort of queer spaces along this tour is really significant to us. And it's different in the sense also that, like, I don't know if it's because just as a theory that people are craving real life experiences and, you know, little connected opportunities to, you know, connect to other people in real life and have, because I mean, when I was growing up as well, like I think the slight goal was to get on a, you know, a sort of Barfly levels tour of the UK where it's homogenous and kind of all the bands at that time sounded the same and awful and it wasn't very inclusive. And, you know, there are definitely positives in that sense. So to be able to book a tour like this where it does have such a diverse, you know, range of experience from an artist perspective is a lot more interesting as well. I mean, that's the tour you want to be doing.
I was gonna say, yeah, because that was what we were. I said we played in Hastings and Ure. It wasn't meant to be like a negative on that. We had the best time playing those spaces because they were so unique, and we met amazing people. And we've played in more like traditional like venues that are like indie venues, and it's just like there's not much of a vibe. The crowd isn't much there because I don't really think big promoters promote much anymore.
Sure.
And people aren't like going to see the big venues anymore. It's not where like the cool stuff is. So that's like those bigger venues sometimes feel like not like where you want to be playing anyway. And we talk about this a lot in our artist community collective. And that's across all disciplines. It's not just music, but everyone's like subcultures are back in a big way, right? The internet has become oversaturated. The internet isn't in subculture anymore, and everything is commercialized. So like zines are back, and being on that one WhatsApp channel, or like listening to this podcast and finding these weird little like indie artists, like seeking it out is you have to be much more intentional about it. So in a way, subcultures are coming back in a, you know, in full force.
I agree. This is something I've thought about too, because like you know, with the kind of decentralization of media where everyone's kind of like media is a lot more fragmented, it has kind of pros and cons. I mean, the pros are, for example, like you do potentially have the opportunity to just like self-release. I think actually that kind of DIY kind of punk rock spirit of like, I'm going to release my own thing. Like everyone's doing that now, like just naturally, like it's not something they're consciously doing as kind of like an ethos. It's just like, well, why wouldn't I? You know, because the opportunities are there. The flip side is that, like, you know, well, before people would listen to, say, Jules Holland or John Peel or whoever, like whatever radio station was considered like, or whatever radio program rather, or whatever show was considered like a place to learn about good music, or even magazines like NME or whatever. It's like people are kind of discovering things for themselves, but the problem is like there's such a sea of competition that it's like, how do you stand out? So it's kind of a weird thing. It's like it's a very double-edged sword, because like you have the opportunity to, at the press of a button, have like your music available universally, but simultaneously it's like, well, are people listening in Chile or are they listening in Hong Kong? You know?
Yeah, it's like realistically it's still quite localized, and I think
Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I think it is, you're right, because it asks a lot. I think media asks a lot of its consumers now, whereas you used to just kind of go about life and be like, oh, I heard that tune and that's interesting. Like even that's harder to do now. You have to be very intentional, and that's tiring, and like people are tired. Like, oh my God, we have so much more we need to be on top of now and be very conscious of, where things used to, like I even walked into a spa the other day and they were like playing, like clearly, you know, you can hear, you're like, they were like, this is spa radio, and you're like, oh, these are license-free songs that are like kind of rip-offs of like popular songs, but they're all very like family friendly. And I was like, this is
I never knew Spar had their own radio station.
And then you're just like, well, this is so awful. I was just sitting there like having like a coffee and with my friend like on a drive, and we were like, this just makes this experience way worse. Like, why are we doing this? It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Whereas I could have gone in and heard, not that you would on a radio these days hear like an up and coming indie band, but you're like,
Sure.
you know, it's just harder now. So you have to be much more intentional. I think that's tough for people.
And yeah,
It's not fair.
Respect for people like yourself and like Getting Her Ears or like Stephen McCauley, broadcaster, or like, you know, there is something of the art of like curation, I think has been lost a little bit. I do really respect and admire that. And it's odd too, because I guess it's that thing of how you create like a certain permanence is tough, because I noticed we were booking this tour, you're going through like every sort of like mid-level venue, I mean bigger than us, like venue across the UK, and often it's like the same acts that seem to play again and again and again from maybe when they were doing a lot more traditional media like 10 to 15 years ago. So you're like, oh, how did, like, is there a way to like sustain that into the next generations? I'm not really sure how that works out. So yeah,
It feels really stagnant, like culture's eating itself sometimes, and I hate it. It's why I love drawn to all of these little like weird collective spaces,
Exactly.
indie things. Like, you know, I'm just like, I don't need a reunion of like a band that was semi big 15 years ago. I'm so sorry. Like,
Yeah.
have fun, but it will make me feel weird about my life. I
Well-
want something interesting and new.
Yeah.
The author Sam Reynolds talked about that in Retromania. It's a really great book, I think, and I think it was written like in the early 2010s, maybe even late 2000s, and you know, he had this theory about that, about like, you know, like media in general, not just music, but like media in general is getting so referential. You know, you look at like even like you go to cinema, like how many things are like sequels or remakes or, you know, stuff. Although maybe that's not a great example, because I think at the moment we're actually seeing some more original stuff come out, which is great. But you know, when everything is just like a pastiche of what's come before, how can new ideas kind of formulate? You know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've not heard that book. I'll have to give it
Yeah,
a
I'll
read.
definitely make a note that is.
He's a great writer, yeah. It's I did I used it in a college essay one time, so it's a great book. I want to talk then about the whole damn cake. So, like as we mentioned, came out last month as we're speaking. It's been about 6 years between this and Be Kind, your previous record. So, did you feel the need to kind of like get a new record out? Because obviously, like you know, I'm sure COVID like totally, like everyone else, just like totally threw everything, you know, out the window a little bit. So, what's there kind of like a need to make a new record, or was this just organically what you were building towards in those 6 years?
I think we've always taken it as like an art form, something we've always, I know, aspired to. Like, I think it's still a great medium to say something important. You can tell a great like beginning, middle, end journey with an album, and we've been through cycles of you just release singles, but it sort of feels a little bit like pissing in the wind sometimes, pardon that expression, but you know, like it gives something, and especially if it can be physical and have meaning. And I suppose selfishly too, it can help you yourself as the artist make meaning of your own life, because it does kind of chronicle this sort of journey of about 5, 6 years since Be Kind. And that previous record, our old manager Lyndon Stevens was a great kind of champion for us doing that. I don't even know if we took ourselves seriously enough to have an album when we did the first album. So I think I planted a seed that was something of tremendous value to share, kind of who you are and your story. And I suppose the journey between them, obviously the pandemic, what a fun time that was. But there was a certain kind of yearning to, you know, create positive change in our lives between the records too, because I felt like that if we're going to do this and make a whole show about it, I'd at least like to honor and respect the people that might listen to it and buy it. And if that involves completely committing to, and you know, exploring our own like identities and like feelings and emotions, and you know, going to therapy and going to the gym, and we did a bunch of other stuff, life things along the way, just living, because it felt more I suppose you know, meaningful to write about that and document that as our version of that as the album than, you know, if we were just writing like fun sounding beats in the house in 2020 and said, here's a 12-track album. I don't think it would have had as much impact in a personal sense.
We were very wanted to make an album, and even the last two albums we've been involved in, like, because we had our first Beauty Sleep album, and as you said, like, we were both in the Wonder Villains, and that had an album as well. Both of those were like, we were releasing and writing singles, and then at one point we were like, oh, we have enough songs and these kind of vibe, we just like write a couple more and put it together, make an album. And I love those albums, you know, they have their own world, but we really wanted to make an album start to finish, and take on that challenge. We were like, I feel like we're ready for that as artists. But of course we made it incredibly difficult for ourselves, because we were like, let's write about like exploring our own identity, and let's really fix things in our lives, and let's make it this massive opus, and let's record everything ourselves. And but I'm really proud of it. I think that there was a great want in us to do that, and in that way, and it's been building for a long time. So it was just, I think, inevitable in our journey in our life that we were wanting to like spend time to really make the album, you know.
Yeah. What was the timeline of actually making the album then?
Well, I think it was, yeah, as Cheylene kind of mentioned there, you know, for us it was more like making an album's a big deal for anyone, don't get me wrong, but I think it was really like a massive, I don't know, like this sort of like document of our lives. Like no matter how, you know, good, bad, however this, that doesn't matter. Like we just got to go on this journey. So that did take a while. And it was everything. It was, I suppose, starting in the house in 2020. So we got our own house together just before the pandemic, which is kind of like a blessing. We always had like a million flatmates. And, you know, we did what everyone probably did that's musical. We kind of started bringing in all the recording equipment and trying to write songs and stuff. And it all felt like a little bit directionless and scary. And then I think we just had this want to sort of scrap that and live when we could again. And also maybe a kind of sonic ambition to like, we listened to our first record, which was, and our first single even was an exercise in, can we produce music for ourselves of high quality for ourselves, and then for other people, can we do that? So for this one, we really wanted to really extend that skill set and want to make something as sonically, you know, adventurous and hi-fi as we felt we could. So yeah, that all took a while. I think principal tracking probably for a few of the tracks was like 2022.
Yeah, we did sessions in 2022, and that was the first recorded things before at the start of the year. And it was kind of just when COVID was like, you can do stuff again. And we're like, great, let's go in and record some stuff. And we did it live with our drummer Ross and our bassist Amy. She's like not in the band anymore, but she was with us for ages. And we were like, let's get the gang back together. We miss everyone. So we did that in 2022, and then we did more writing that year, and we did another round of that at like start of 2023. And then we kind of were like, what are we doing at that point? And we went to some music industry festivals. We met some people who were like, what is an album? What are we doing? And we kind of chipped away at mixing it. And then we realized that, we wanted to do some, like, I actually don't even know what we realized. That's kind of, we were exploring for a bit. And then we built this studio because we realized we wanted to do more with it. And it was just too expensive and difficult to book in the time in other studios. So we built this studio, and then we were like editing away and mixing and recording and changing things. And that was actually really, really freeing, because in the other sessions we were like really planned. You go in, you're like, these are the hours and the days and the things, and let's go attack it. Whereas in this studio we're like, shall we go into the studio and, you know, lay down some vocals this evening with a beer, you know? And not that it has to be that casual, but I'm just saying that you could just be like, everything's plugged in, let's do that now. And that was really great for us to be able to finish it. And then we just continued to mix it and completely destroy our sanity whilst also trying to figure out the business part of it, you know? And that was a big thing too. I was like, I don't want to, like, you know, there's nothing wrong with putting it on Bandcamp and releasing it, but I just didn't want to do that with this. I was like, I've you know, I want, trying for the production to be bigger. I want to understand the business stuff more. And a lot of this album's like us taking responsibility for like our goals and dreams. You're like, well, if I want that, then like, can I just figure it out? And I'm really proud of us, because I think we figured it out on the level that we were happy with. And so, you know, we managed to connect with Alcopop, and we managed to get some funding, and then we were like pulling together some visuals. And, you know, it's just, I feel like, though we did start releasing stuff in 2024, because we released a single, Big and Bad, and that was a way for us to try and hook in a label, which worked, which was good. But so we kind of feel like we've been releasing this album for a year and a half, so we're like a bit exhausted. But technically we finished the mastering and the mixing and got it mastered in February this year. So it really was like from 2022 to like start of 2025, like a lot of work for recording. And then we were writing before then and during then and constantly, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's such a long answer.
No, not at all. I'm afraid of long answers because it gives me stuff to write.
Oh, good. Well, you've come to the right place.
Yeah. Can you tell that we just like, so it takes us 5 years. It takes us 5 years to answer a question. Never mind write an album. Like, for goodness sake.
I was gonna say that time frame too. Also, just like the other part that's happening is like when we're doing that, then you're balancing that with like other work that's happening. So there's just kind of like seesaw of those things. And I do think, although it took us a little while, it's like, I think that's okay. Like it was very useful for perspective at times, just to go and work on other projects, do other things, and even like building our studio was a purpose, like so purposeful as we need a place to mix this. We can't spend hundreds per to be in someone else's space, and that created all these other opportunities and means of being able to write with other people and mix other projects and produce other stuff. So it was growing, like the record was growing as I think hopefully we're growing as people, which sounds cheesy, but that is and then also, as you alluded to the business side, I think at a point it felt a bit trite to like we've been in bands before where people and managers did a lot of the things and you weren't really sure what they were doing, and you're like, well, what are you doing? We can figure this out. We figured out these other things. Surely we can get a handle on this too. And at least when we wanted to connect with people, it was, well, we want to connect with the right people. We admire Alcopop, or we admire this designer or photographer, whoever that came along on the journey. So yeah, that just maybe took a little time to settle, but I'm happy with that.
I wanted to speak about Alcopop actually. So, legendary British indie label. I was wondering how exactly you kind of caught their attention or got on the radar.
We essentially kidnapped Jack today in Belfast, to be honest.
You went to this. You went outside, and we're like, we're not letting you out until.
Well,
I mean, yes, but we also the Problem Patterns are really good friends of ours, and Problem Patterns are an Alcopop, and they've also been incredibly helpful on our journey on this album, because every time we're like, I don't know what we're doing, and they're like, why don't you just like talk to this person? Like, they're so kind and helpful, and they have we've supported them, and I know like our music does not sound the same, but their belief in us has made us feel like really seen, and so we really love them, and
it's coming from the same place. Like, even though it's maybe a slightly different delivery mechanism, I think emotionally what we do comes from the same impulse a lot of the time. And I just feel really honored to be their friends and to play shows with them.
So we did a remix for them. They did a remix EP, and they were like, do you want to remix a song? We're like, absolutely. And then they wanted to use our song as like their lead single, and so we technically then were like chatting to Jack a little bit during that, and then they were like messaging us being like, ask him round, he's coming to Belfast on this day, get him over for a coffee. So then we were like, Jack, when are you coming out in our studio? And I guess like he kind of knew who we were at that point, and we sat him down, played in the record, and we were like, this is exactly what we want, this is the timeline, this is what we've got to handle on, this is what we don't, we think you're cool, we liked working with you, balls in your court. And then he was like, all right, let's do it. So
simple as that.
No, I've spoken to the Belfast musician Con Thornton, and we
were listening to that earlier today.
Oh, perfect! Yeah, and they brought up Problem Pattern too, and I was like, because they wanted to feature one of their songs on a comp they were doing, and I was like, how did you get on the radar? And they were like, I have no idea. But they seem to be like, again, like I like their music, but I don't know them personally. But they do seem to be, really kind of guides, like really like guiding people, like here's how you kind of do it. Like they seem really invested in the music scene too, like which I think is great, because it's not just like well, I got mine, see it.
Yeah, no,
100%,
they hold up like the music scene here.
But they are like by far the people that bring good people together, just for the sake of that being the right thing to do.
And so diverse too, like the music, like as you mentioned, like it's not just music that's kind of akin to what they're doing. Like they seem to have a holistic kind of approach to like everything that's going on, and supporting indie artists, which I think is great, because like I think it's people who recognize the tenacity of what's being done and trying to help those people, you know what I mean? Like I think that's like really the important thing.
And also, I mean, we've been in the scene for years. Like when they came along and burst into the scene, like I'll keep it real, I think the industry here took them a minute to take them seriously, and I feel like that Problem Patterns felt that, and I definitely feel like in their bones they're like, well, we're going to amplify and help out all of the people that seem to be ignored by the general music scene in Ireland, and just if we all band together and big each other up, we can do it on our own. And if I said we were asking them for advice, it was often they were like, fuck the industry, you don't need them, just talk to this cool person, you're amazing. Like that's generally their advice, and it's so needed, and it's also so true. Problem Patterns and Katie Richardson, and like because Katie Richardson and Kira King, they host like a music club for like she's, theys and gays called 2D, and that's how I met Con Thornton as well, and it's just great. Those two people connect me with all of the interesting people in my life who inspire me and give me opportunity, and it's really cool and exciting to kind of feel like you're existing slightly outside of the music industry and more in like the communities of like fierce people who just want to make stuff happen, because we all deserve a spot too. It's really cool.
I want to ask just one final question or two because I don't want to be too gratuitous with with
No,
your
it's fine.
time.
Sorry.
No, no
It's
worries.
No,
because
no,
we're
no, not at
chatty.
all.
It is. It's
No,
because we're
absolutely.
so
No, no, I
chatty.
love it. No, I'm just trying to be conscious of your time. But I wanted to ask you maybe two more questions. So one question I wanted to ask was about you were talking about like delving into kind of the personal and being like really just talking about identity and talking about yourselves in a very like kind of vulnerable way on this record. Was that something that was difficult for you guys, or was it very easy? Was it just been like, yeah, this is us?
No, it was so
That was really
difficult.
hard.
No, because like, is it an external thing? Because I talk to other artists about this, and like, even sometimes like I'll have people being like, "Yeah, I wanted to release a song about like, this thing that happened to me, but I was like worried about what my mom would think or stuff like that."
Oh,
You
there
get
is
people like that.
there is a lot of that. There's like we're just really laughing. I actually feel like I need to have a conversation with my parents at this point
Yeah,
because,
same.
but it's not like what we're releasing with Beauty Sleep is us being completely ourselves at the
Yeah.
minute, and that is hard and brave to do. But your self-expression and identity doesn't generally come up when you're hanging out with your parents. You're just like,
Mhm.
oh, what's for dinner? Oh, tell me more about what's going on, and also it doesn't matter because they just see you as like they're like that's not a part of your relationship, like they're going to love you unconditionally, so it doesn't matter how you express yourself. But I think um like you being completely yourself and expressing that in the world and finding your community, and also amplifying that for other people, which I always find is very important, like because we definitely broach through like neurodivergence and mental health and queerness all through this record, and they're
Yeah.
conversations I don't have with my parents, but they're conversations that I do want to explore in my art, and that's okay. So I can't remember the question, but yeah, it was really difficult. It was difficult for us to figure out about ourselves. That's the thing.
Sure.
Like I think the first album was us going like, we're really stressed and sad, I don't really know who we are, but like here's some dreamy music about it. And then this album we were like, well, we need to figure out what that is. We need to figure out who we are so we can write about it, because the story can't be, oh, I'm so sad and I don't know why and I don't really understand myself forever. Like at some point you have
Sure.
to go, I need to further this story on, if not for any other reason than the songs.
Yeah,
Which is our motivating factor to like pay attention to things in our lives.
absolutely. And for the other reason of just, I don't know, out of respect nearly for people that so many amazing people have seemed to get something from what we do. And I think the most respectful thing could be to be the most authentically us we can be for ourselves also. But like getting under the hood and doing that is like, it is a lot of therapy, and it is a lot of like soul searching, and it is like kind of just accepting the many sort of quirks of your personality, and to like investigate your own queerness in your 30s when it wasn't something that you massively were able to, I don't know, just like never not accept, but just put a label to and proudly present, in addition to being, married and doing all these other things. And that just felt really freeing. And
Yeah.
because it's the thing of like, I don't even think I need to say that to people, because in a sense, it's an internal feeling as well, if you get me. So like, that was pretty massive.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have just said like at some point in this album creation, people would come up to us and be like, you seem a lot happier. You seem really like great."
Yeah.
Like just friends or people we know. And in a way I think that's it, right? It's internal. Like we were completely creating a world of pain for ourselves. And I think that's probably why we connected in the first place. We're just not really understanding who we are and wanting to make music about that. Um and yeah, so it's an internal expression, and whenever you do that you feel so free. And I think that's why a lot of this album is like radical happiness and big and bad, just because it really surprised us how much we got from that, when really all that was shifted was us being able to admit it to ourselves
Yeah.
and talk about it and think about it, and view life as though, this is who I am and I understand myself. Like nothing really changed in terms of like our jobs or our friends, or it was an internal shift. And I really believe in that for people. So I really want people to feel empowered to like own their story, if no other reason than it makes you happy. Like that's the point, surely, right? It doesn't matter if other people know, but you're allowed to be exactly who you are. I don't know. I feel like I'm not
Yeah.
very good at speaking in platitudes. You should listen to the album. That's that's what I think. Every time I try and explain it, I think it comes across really like trite. But no,
No,
the
I think it's
album
very
is
important.
yeah.
No, I think it's very important now, actually, because like I think even like in the last decade or so, we've seen like a weird cultural shift towards the right, seemingly globally. I do think it's still important because like I actually think queer art, if you kind of like monitor it, you can kind of see it fluctuate based on the politics that surround at the time. You can see more revolutionary queer art, and you can see more celebratory queer art depending on like when it's placed. And what I think is very interesting is that like um I think this is a very hopeful record and very celebratory record, and it's kind of coming at a time where there is like consternation that, it's kind of resurfacing now in like, even like if you look at like the US, like for example, they're talking about rolling back like same-sex marriage or
That's
trans rights are
crazy.
constantly under attack. There's like the scapegoating the trans people, I think is just like
It's
disgusting.
horrendous. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a scary, scary time, for sure.
Yeah. But
But
that's why I
yeah,
think like a record like this kind of actually does. I don't know. It's sort of to me kind of counters that in a way.
well, that's
Yeah.
nice, and hopefully it does help. Obviously, like it happens over a long time, and you just have to make the art you're going to make. Like
Yeah,
I think this is the best voice we can give to that cause of like throw off, like I don't know, throw off the shame cloaks and embrace how weird and fun everyone is.
yeah,
That's the best thing that we can do at this juncture to add to the cultural landscape. And we do talk about that. We talk about, like, there was some like I like being that in culture. There was someone did like a compilation of like all the releases we're featuring on our blog, on Instagram, and it was loads of the band photos, and it was like all a lot of black and white and like serious photos, and it was us, which was like a giant colorful photo of me pretending to eat Ryan, like with some weird perspectives, and I was like, yes, that's what I like. I feel like that's what we are. We're like trying to punch through like a sea of like it's everything is tough, and like all of that music is really important too, but like when you look at the big picture, like you need all of it, right? You need a remembrance that life is joyful, and
yeah,
we have control over how we feel, and I always feel like if I feel really sad and overwhelmed, then I don't feel empowered to make shit happen. But if I feel myself and seen and free, then I feel like I'm like, yes, and I'm gonna make that happen. And don't you dare talk to my friends like that. Like I just feel so much more riled up. And so it's important to remember to take care of your own sanity and
sure.
expression as well. Again, I feel like I'm just singing a platitudes
No,
now, but
absolutely not.
there's a lot going on. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, could I ask? Sorry, do you find the like have you noticed it in your personal life, a political shift, or is it more kind of like something you're seeing from a distance, like happening elsewhere?
I've noticed that socially more, in the sense of like I've very happily, for the first time, felt very uniquely myself when I'm in
Yeah,
very traditional environments, for lack of a more specific term, and I like that. I don't know. I'm trying to think of that question. Like I definitely feel it. So the song "Big and Bad" was the first one song where I felt like that was a direct rejection of like what the algorithm was putting on me, and I just felt really
yeah,
angry. And like I think that's a lot of that emotion that you were just sharing, where it's like, don't fucking tell me who I am. That thing of
yeah,
like trying to take ownership, and then just that rejection of this like Joe Rogan manosphere bollocks, which it really makes people very homogenized
yeah,
at its core. It completely stifles all freedom of expression and the wonderful quirks and oddities of people. So I was like, no, this can't be. Everyone I know is like so uniquely who they are, and just a one in a million person, the people that I love and admire and respect. So it was kind of like disavowing that and like wanting to be, well, fuck. And even for what we do, I think at times you're trying to just, it is, we have like silly little pop songs in a way, but it's a great way to make sense of difficult emotions at times, and it can be the same for art or comedy or anything. Yeah, what was the question? Sorry, I meandered off
Oh
course.
no,
yeah,
it's
that
just
we noticed it. Yeah.
Have we noticed
yeah,
it? Yeah,
I,
I think
I
so.
think
Yeah.
well, yes. I mean, in the wider, not in our own group, because as we just said, we're like
yeah,
part of like queer collectives and artist collectives. So our own world is fantastically strange. But
Yeah.
I do see everyone feels much more isolated,
yeah,
and and then when you do kind of check in with people, they just feel like a lot more disconnected and a lot more homogenous. And I don't know because I'm not hanging out with the grand people, but that's the main thing I feel in my like immediate surroundings, that everyone feels a lot more distant. Like it's harder for
yeah,
me to randomly talk to someone I don't know, because people, even if you're like standing in a coffee shop or like at a gig, they're a lot more, not at a gig, everyone at a gig is insanely nice, but I think that does have an effect, because then if people are just looking at algorithms and they're telling them things, and it can kind of ruminate in their brain, and and there's so much negative things going on in the world. Like people are scared. I definitely see that people are scared and isolated, and that I don't think that should mean a turn to the right, but I see it does seem to be like a trend in a way that you're more vulnerable to
Yeah.
like not conspiracy but yeah, conspiracy theories and like aggressive tactics of like it's their fault if you're feeling isolated and alone and scared.
Yeah.
And that's, so I can see how that happens. So I think, again, I feel like the answer is we should all go to more shows and make more art and party more. You know, it's very important part of this. You can't do it alone in a room going, oh, it's all so difficult. How do I make it better? Like, you have to do it together.
The thing that gives
Yeah.
us meaning always is that connection to other people. I think like that's the thing that keeps you just remembering the joys and vibrancy of life. And so, in a sense, like the fact that we have been involved with so many wonderful like our artist collective here and queer collectives, it's like, you know, that's just so important, like keeping people together. Because when you're isolated, I don't think it's very good for you, you know.
No, yeah, I agree. I think like that human connection is very important, and it sounds like such a simple answer, but like I really do think like it's very hard to kind of dehumanize people in the way that we're seeing now online if you actually have that personal connection and you realize like, oh, they're just people who like shit too, like me,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
That's so true. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
It's so much harder to do all of that. But it is a simple answer. It's difficult in process though, right? Because people are
yeah,
broke as
exactly.
well, and like they just and there's not as much spaces anymore. Like it's just harder to do it now. Like it's
Yeah.
tough. Even these shows we're promoting, you're like, how do people hear about them? I don't know. The algorithm keeps asking me for money. I don't know if it's like going to reach them. Do you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, because like when you do the algorithm push, you're like, okay, I can see people are looking at it, but are they actually interested? Are
Yeah.
they digging it? Are they like actually gonna come along? That's like the hard thing. Like, because
Yeah.
I know people who work in promotions too, like independent promotions, and I sometimes will see their stuff as a sponsored ad, and then I'll talk to them, and they'll be like, "So how'd that going?" And they're like, "I don't know." You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I have no idea.
I know. And it's such a data driven world, as they say. I keep thinking
Yeah,
like the numbers mean nothing. Like it's like who it's because you're scrolling as well. I feel like
yeah,
it's so hard to care. It's like you're like, oh, that's interesting, and then you forget about it immediately. And it's
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Or even just stuff like you don't have to go out of your way to like go to you know, a place to buy a ticket. You can do it anytime on your phone. So oftentimes you'll just be like, oh, I'll do that a little later, and like maybe just not the awareness of how much it helps a band and a promoter to know how many people are
yeah.
going to be there, so they can loosely project like the costs and if it'll break even, and all the simple little things like that that you know wouldn't never have been a second thought, are a lot more difficult with all of this technology. Bizarrely, you know.
Yeah, and even like sometimes people are like, "Oh shit, I meant to go to that. Oh, that was on Wednesday. Oh shit," you know, like I
yes,
see that a
that's
lot.
so true. Yeah. Anyway, la la la.
Well, one final thing I just want to ask for, let you get on with your day, is actually talking about that kind of, obviously inclusivity is a very important part of your live shows and the environment you're trying to create. I was wondering, is that something that artists have to um, sort of work at in terms of like making sure that like their live performances are an inclusive space, or do you think it's more indicative of if the art itself kind of projects that inclusivity, the people that would be drawn to it will be of a similar mind and of a similar kind of disposition, that they would be kind of more open-minded and more kind of like more cool, for lack of a better term, or more kind of like,
Yeah.
accepting? Or is the onus still on the artists in their live performances to make sure, hey, everyone's welcome?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of both. I mean, we're so indie underground that like, well, actually, sorry, I jumped ahead. I think it's probably a bit of both. I think that like whenever like you make art that's cool and interesting, and a lot of people who feel very akin to it and very inclusively are the same, will be drawn to it first. But
Mhm.
and then what I often think happens is a certain breaking point where like once an artist is seen as cool, it's easy for everyone to be like, oh yeah, I'll go see them and I'll go see that show.
Yeah,
And then you are inviting in a lot more people who might not be aware of the deep roots of inclusivity that they have. So like we're at a stage where we're just kind of like, if people turn up, I am certain that they will be extremely lovely weirdos that I can't wait
yeah,
to meet. But yeah, you have to be, I do think you have to be careful. And people are, I see people be very careful like to protect those spaces as safe spaces. And because it's easy for it to go wrong, right? It's a dark room late at night, everyone's drinking. Like
yeah,
you have to be careful with that.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
it's
like,
good that people are talking about that now, because people were not talking about that 10 years ago.
yeah,
yeah, and like maybe it's measures of like you know, ensuring like gig buddies or like different measures where like that the safety of that space can be like retained, and it's not, I mean, going back, I remember like reading an old Nirvana interview where they said at like a certain point the people who used to beat them up at school were coming to the shows, and you're like, that's really terrifying.
Yeah.
And never mind then the safety of what's happening in the crowd when like you're so connected at a larger level on stage. It's like really terrifying. So I think that, yeah, there's always like practices you can put in place, but we've been so fortunate thus far that like the gigs that we play, we're just so happy because all the people are like, you know, you just want to be best friends with everyone, like, and everyone there is so inspired, and like even all the gig photos we have of crowd shots over the last year, it's just like the best people, and it really makes you thankful to be in that room and on the stage.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, guys. It was really lovely chatting with you. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up? Anything I failed to cover?
No,
You've been
yes,
wonderful.
just thank you so much for listening, and please listen to our album. And depending on when this comes out, come and see us live.
Yeah, I'll try and get this out before the live
No,
dates.
no,
But you're
the live dates are so
don't worry.
hilariously soon. Do
Yeah.
not worry about it.
Well,
No,
hopefully
no,
there'll
okay.
be more hopefully next year once
Yeah.
we get this all
It's gonna,
happening.
yeah, this is the start of it, right?
Yeah,
So-
just
Yeah.
Beauty Sleep the band, check in with us, you know.
Yeah,
Oh,
Beauty
and
Sleep
one
the
plug and
band.
stuff,
Yeah, Beauty Sleep the band. If you look us up online, then you should be able to find us. If you just search Beauty Sleep, you'll just get lots of tips for good night's sleep, which is also fine.
Which
So-
isn't bad in and of itself.
No,
You know,
so you can do a bit
yeah.
of both, but Beauty Sleep the band should get you us on socials.
Maybe
and
that'd be a good
Instagram.
like licensing thing. Like maybe if you could go to these like sleep expert TikTokers and stuff and just be like, hey,
Oh,
can you
yeah.
put our music on? We'll give you like a bit on the back end.
Yeah, that would be fair. We were laughing, saying we should do like a spa music,
sound
like
bath.
sound bath thing, but like our music is so loud that actually wouldn't really work. But maybe, you know, that's in our future. We'll do like a
That's the
sound
retirement
bath,
plan, yeah.
dreamy spa
Sure, just do it so
album.
we can
Yeah.
yeah.
Spa days. Perfect. And the fun thing I'll just ask is what do you have planned, I guess, for 2026? Because 2025 is almost over.
Oh, it's a really good question. So much and nothing because we're so wrapped up in what's immediately in front of us that I couldn't tell you exactly. But we are really excited to continue to play shows. We really, really want to write another album quite quickly as a kind of like cultural antithesis, like not cultural, creative antithesis to like the album that precedes it. And yeah, so we're kind of figuring out ways to do that and applying to lots of festivals and hoping for more live shows and more writing. We're actually so excited to write more music because, as any artist will know, now that these songs are out, I hate them and I never want to think about them again.
Yes.
I want to write new
A
songs.
common problem.
Yeah.
But perfect. Thanks
Hopefully
very
other
much for your time,
people-
guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank
Good
you
chatting
so
with
much. It was so lovely to
You're
chat to
wonderful.
you. Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, so we hope that you enjoyed and would consider subscribing, giving it a like on YouTube, or a rating anywhere else. We also have some exclusive episodes only available on Spotify, which features interviews with the likes of Kim Deal, Ron Mail of Sparks, Jacob Slater of Wonder Horse, Maria Kelly, Gavin Friday, and many more. So check those out if you're so inclined. Otherwise, thank you for listening and see you next time.